Now, I do want to apologize if you hear a very strange sound. It's because my fan's on and my air conditioner is not working. That's why you have a very strange sound hovering around my voice. But other than that, I want to talk about K-pop Demon Hunter, specifically Bobby, because Bobby is a very interesting built character. Because I don't know you, have you noticed? You watch the film around between the second and third act, everything sort of slows down. Almost it's something is sort of missing in between those parts. It's because I don't know it's true, Party Bobby supposed to be there and be murked between all the girls, and one of the dozen reasons why all three girls sort of separate for a second and kind of translation understanding what happened to Bobby. At least that is my honest opinion, because it's so weird how we sort of built, but at the same time I can see why they decided to remove that specific moment if they was actually did it. I think because for two specific reasons. One, maybe they think they didn't need it, and two, they didn't want to fridge Bobby. If you don't know what I mean, fridging is basically murking a character you barely know and have sort of a relationship of one of the main leads, and automatically got terminated by a evil villain just to see how truly evil and shocking it was, and get a motivation of the main leads to stop him and remembering of that specific character. And that's sort of called fridging. But because of this, people don't like that specific sort of act of a character because it's sort of cheap, useful, and feels sort of useless and only done by female characters. Murking female characters get the male lead, a sort of reason to fight. Nowadays, it's more spread out to being guy, girl, gay, or whatever character you can think of being fridged to elevate the character. But this is a sort of a good reason why maybe he needed to be fridged to elevate the moment, because it kind of did needed it. In fact, there have been other good moments exactly like Bobby that I'm not sure to fridge or not fridge a specific character. In fact, the only two ones I can actually think of is How to Train Your Dragon 2 and actually My Hero Academia. Of course, before I breaking down and give my explanation, my name is Rachel. I like to talk about animation, not just animation, the reviews, first impressions, cartoon theories, and sometimes, if I have some spare time, cartoon breaking news. Of course, you like how it's going, like to help my channel, put a like, comment, and subscribe. That's the only thing you can do. If not, that's fine. If you do, thank you. Because of you, I'm getting close to my main goal of 2,000 subscribers. And yes, I'm getting close every single day because of people like you. People put like, comment, and share. Thank you. Now let's keep started of this conversation if Bobby deserved to be fridged or not. Now let's get started. Now I'm wondering how many of you actually cared about Bobby being murked in the movie. You think that was a good idea to elevate that specific scene, or you prefer not Bobby to be eliminated and it'll be fine like this? Because at the very end, you do notice in between the second and third act. Of course, the more I can think about it, the more I can see why they decided not to. It's because that they had to rechange a lot of things to make the whole storyline make sense with Bobby with the girls. Because you see that Bobby is a sort of a family member in the group and someone they care, a father figure, an uncle, a cousin. But at the same time, they have to sort of reflect of some of their own family members to reflect to Bobby what the girls mean to them. He also really needed to actually able to work that murky in the moment in between the scene 2 and scene 3 to actually make it work. But at the same time, you don't need all family members. I think you just need to reflect of Rumi's sort of aunt or grandmother who raised her, because it's very interesting get add more depth and decide to go that direction to reflect Rumi's own grandmother and Bobby, how Bobby really means to her, and she actually can tell him who she really is because it actually more open up, more trusting, because Bobby willing to actually open up to Rumi. Just to give you an idea the potential of Bobby if decided to be fridged or murked. Of course, we have this other problem that how the gay community are attached to K-pop Demon Hunter, especially Bobby. Some gay fans do relate to Bobby or feel Bobby is specific gay. So if they decide to murk him, that could be maybe a bad idea, because let's face it, if you hear the gay community every time they got mad, is because they kind of murk a gay character, only that gay character. And once more, we don't know Bobby is gay or not, but at the very end, it's sort of their interpretation, and that itself could be a backlash or another reason why they decide to not actually fridge Bobby, because the potential a backlash. In fact, I don't know if it was a good idea, bad idea, depends on you. But at the same time, you could see others having the same problem in the past with different IP. I think one of the big examples is sort of like My Hero Academia, specifically the fight from All for One, One for All, that All Might should actually be murked between that fight, because after that fight ended, the whole story with Deku kind of falls flat. This is what I mean, kind of reflects kind of like with Bobby, because if he wasn't murked in that specific moment, it could elevate the story or drag it. But once again, it's sort of your own opinion. You think maybe he wasn't a good idea to murk him because it take longer and had to do changes, but it also wasn't necessary, but yet you see the gap in between. That's what a lot of people complain about, why All Might still alive. Like, it's sort of obvious he should be murked, but he never did. That's why it sort of dragged the couple of seasons, because it's sort of hard to care about Deku, of his motivations, the reason why he must be the best of all heroes. But another good example is probably How to Train Your Dragon. I don't know you, Hiccup's father, when he was murked, I felt basically not much. I mean, I understand why he feel angry, but I feel that was sort of almost like a fridgy moment. Yeah, I mean, this is the reason why I mean that fridging is sort of kind of bad, because you don't know can actually work or not. To me, it didn't work, but I feel it'd be more effective than Hiccup's own father and mother both were actually murked in between that film. We give it more weight, more strength, more understanding of Hiccup's sort of freak out to this sort of betrayal about him and his own parents. Once again, it's sort of my opinion. You could easily disagree with me, and that's completely fine, but you have to admit, when you actually rewatch those specific scenes of those specific moments of all three of them, you do feel a little empty. You wondering maybe they actually should push it a little bit more farther, just a little bit more. And this is the reason why I think Bobby should actually be murked, because it feels right. In other words, it feels something is there to actually to give more weight to the characters. But at the same time, I can see why, because let's face it, Bobby is just so likable, trustworthy. The only thing I kind of wish the movie did is just sort of maybe Bobby should have known. It's sort of your own interpretation, but at the same time, I kind of wish they actually did let him murk in between the film to make it more stronger. Oh, who knows? Maybe because of the popularity, have a bigger chance to make a sequel, and that sequel they decide to murk Bobby to elevate the girls' sort of problems, whatever sequel, if they actually be made. But once more, it's still a risk, because back to like My Hero Academia, the reason why they didn't murk All Might is because it was so popular. To compare to How to Your Dragons, the reason why we murk one parent, not both, of Hiccup is because the director or writer argued it would be too much to maybe the whole family to see not one parent but both. But at the same time, it makes sense. To me, it kind of was maybe necessary, but at the same time, it's just so risky to do, because if you do, of all three characters I'm talking about, it's the fact you kind of pissed off the fans. But that's the problem, which you should or should not work or save your own material to elevate the characters. It's all about maybe or not. It depends on your fans how extreme they actually are. But once more, that's sort of my kind of take on it, because it is interesting how Bobby was built. Affect how you felt about this. Tell me down below. Do you feel Bobby was not used the right way, used correctly, or you kind of semi agree if Bobby should be murked or not? Tell me down below. Let me know. I honestly have nothing to say. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and have a wonderful day. Bye.